I studied the last decade of one of the richest men in the world in an attempt to discover how he built multi-generational wealth, and what I discovered might surprise you. So in this video, I'm going to reveal to you the secrets this billionaire used to help you guarantee your returns year after year so that your grandchildren's first car's a Ferrari. And the first thing that stuck out to me like a sore thumb was only having to be right on a few things.
I've told students if when they got out of school, they got a punch card with 20 punches on it, and that's all the investment decisions they got to make in their entire life, they would get very rich because they would think very hard about each one. And you don't need 20 right decisions to get very rich. You know, 4 or 5 will probably do it over time.
You see, we're all guilty of chasing. We all love to chase shiny objects. Oh, look at this stock going up massively, or look at this new crypto project projected to go to the moon. You see, the problem with this is you get far too spread. We want to have ultimate conviction on only a handful of investments, so we have laser focus and can study them in great detail. The next thing I noticed kind of surprised me.
Cash is always a bad investment. I mean, when people said cash is king a year ago, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, cash wasn't producing anything, and it was sure to go down in value over time. And then you always want to be sure you have enough. I mean, it's like oxygen. You want to be sure it's around, you know, but you don't need to have excessive amounts of it around. But anytime we have surplus cash around, I'm unhappy. I mean, I would much rather have good businesses than cash. And we came in with something over 40 billion in cash, right. And we've got about 20 billion now, and we've had some earnings. So we put a lot of cash to work, and I like that. No, I'd much rather own a good business than have cash.
Warren stands behind the point of cash is worthless. They're not worthless, worth less. And this makes sense to me because you have to understand that cash just sitting in your bank doesn't produce anything, and you're much better putting this into an asset that can grow over time and or produce cash flow. Now, the next thing I found that I think we can all learn from is not letting our emotions get the best of us. Let me give you an example. You buy Bitcoin at 60k thinking you're getting in at a good time after it's literally doubled in the last few months. Then it begins to plummet down to 30k in the next couple of months. You're now sitting at a whopping 50% haircut. What do? Well, you've got 2 options. Do you sell at a 50% loss, go away and never come back to the market ever again? Or do you understand that you've done your homework on the asset you've chosen and it's just going to require more time in the market to see a return? Now, yes, ideally in this scenario, you shouldn't have jumped in at this time, but no one can time the market. The point is you're now in and you're taking your first leap. You're already ahead of 90% of everybody else, which brings me on to what I think is one of Buffett's best advice that I think we should literally write down and have it in front of us every day. And that is to study the business, not the price.
Certainly most of the professional investors focus on what the stock is likely to do in the next year or two. And they have all kinds of methods of approaching that, but they do not really think of themselves as owning a piece of a business. The real test of whether you're investing from a value standpoint or not is whether you care whether the stock market is open tomorrow. If you're making a good investment in a security, it shouldn't bother you if they close down the stock market for 5 years. All the ticker tells me is the price. Prices don't tell me anything about a business. Business figures themselves tell me something about a business, but the price of a stock doesn't tell me anything about a business. I would rather value a stock or a business first and not even know the price, so that I'm not influenced by the price in establishing my valuation, and then look at the price later to see whether it's way out of line with what my value is.
I think Amazon is one of the best examples of this. Way back in 2000, 22 years ago now, Amazon started to dump, and I mean dump, massively. It went from over $5 to less than 30 cents, a whopping minus 95% loss. Again, you had 2 options. Were you the ones that were buying, or were you the ones that just couldn't take it anymore and you wanted out? Because it took a whopping 9 years for it to get back to those prices of the $5.50 mark. But if you did buy and take advantage of this and understand you're invested in the stock's business and not the price, you would be stupid rich now. And there's been many other cases in different assets. And before we move on to the next part of Warren's formula, there's a few other things I noticed about him. And this one comes at a cautionary for new investors though, and that is, he's not always right.
At one point this weekend, you said that Bitcoin, and this was based, you were asked, Charlie said Bitcoin's like rat poison. You were asked about that comment and you said, well, it's probably more like rat poison squared.
Because we can't argue on what Bitcoin has done in terms of returns for some people, but it definitely has got a lot of people wrecked, especially most that gambled with speculative altcoins. But this ties in perfectly to one of Warren's best points. Never invest anything into what you don't understand. Ultimately, he might have been wrong on Bitcoin, but but he's open. He doesn't understand it. He's a stock value investor, so it's ultimately fair to have that opinion. He does what he knows best, and that's sticking to what he knows and understands. So you need to constantly ask yourself the question, do I understand this? Do I truly know what I'm getting myself into? And if so, what if it goes to zero? Can I stomach this and move on? Because a lot of people can't, and they get wiped out, never to be seen in the stock or crypto market ever again. And now we have the most important part of the formula. Warren has used this consistently time and time again over years and years, and it's one, if you use it in your own investments, you will always win in this game, and that's starting early.
Getting a stake early is very useful, and getting knowledge early is very useful. So
this goes back to the most important point. Time in the market beats trying to time the market. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean you have to start at 20 or 30. The point here is if you're in your 50s and thinking it's too late for you, you're still better off investing now and getting time in the market rather than waiting until you're 60. Because you have wasted a crucial 10 years of letting your investments mature and compound over time. Let me explain. For example, let's say you had 10K and $1,000 to invest on a monthly basis, and a reasonable return of 10% per year over the course of 10 short years, you would have a whopping $225K. Now let's say you had a further 10 years, you would now have a whopping $785,000. That is the power of time in the market. Now before I go on to address the massive problem, there's one part of the formula that is crucial for even the majority of investors, and that's persistence. Persistence is the reason Warren could get wiped out but still come back fighting, and why someone like Michael Saylor could file for bankruptcy but come back stronger than ever and be a billionaire once again. It's the engine of strong investors. We all make bad mistakes when it comes to this game, because without it, nothing else would be effective. Either way, investing is not a place to be fearful. The more you can openly do the research, have conviction, make mistakes and learn, the better you will become, because we all have our own stories and our own path. You just can't give up when times get hard. Be greedy when others are fearful. Now there's tons more to learn about Warren, but I couldn't really ignore the elephant in the room. Warren's a billionaire. He doesn't need crazy returns anymore. When you have a large amount invested, it really doesn't take a lot to grow this. And often that's what makes people say,
well, of course it's easy for him. I don't have a few billion.
It won't work for me. But actually, the only reason he has a few billion is because of the effort he's put in at such a young age. This starting early really snowballs, as we mentioned before. It's crucial. You can easily try gamble a small amount and become a millionaire. Yes, have some speculative plays on the side, but don't, and I mean don't play this game like a lottery, because you will be wiped out. It's a blood sport, and ask yourself every time you go to press that buy button, is this the right choice? Do I understand this? What if it goes to zero? Doing this will set you apart from the rest. And then this video here is going to teach you to become the top 10% of investors instead of failing like the 90% by using these 3 crucial tricks.